So if you're like me, you probably heard for quite a while that oil painting can be toxic and dangerous and you shouldn't do it inside, and it's a pain to work with and it's really intimidating, and I'm here to tell you it's really not that intimidating. Welcome. Please like and subscribe for more art content just like this. There's very minimal research that you have to do to make sure that you are being safe with your oil paints and being careful in your space. So number one, the biggest thing if you are working indoors is that you want to have a solvent that is indoor friendly. And I say indoor friendly because none of the solvents out there are completely odorless. So if you are sensitive to smells, it could get to you after a while if you're standing there painting for a while. So my go-to for using indoors is Gamsol, and I enjoy Gamsol because it is a really low odor. There is still a faint smell to it. I still keep my window open a little bit whenever I'm oil painting, just so that the smells don't get too heavy, because you can smell it after a while. And then I keep a lid on my solvent jar when I'm not using it. But Gamsol is my number one go-to. My number two that I really like using, and I learned about it through the Milan Art Institute. I'm part of their mastery program, and I've actually learned tons and tons of stuff from them, excuse me. So I am going to, I'm going to link their stuff down below because I literally got into my gallery with the first masterclass I took from them before I even enrolled in the mastery program. So anyways, shameless plug for them because I 100% will vouch for them every single day because of how much they have taught me. So, Eco House Mild Citrus Thinner. This guy smells like oranges, which I love. Some people don't. If you don't like orange smells, then don't get this one. If you are sensitive to odors, Gamsol is probably going to be the right one for you. However, this one smells like oranges. It's made from orange peels. So, both of them I would say are very comparable with the way that they work. Just one has a lower odor than the other one. The best thing about both of these is you can reuse them. So usually you have a solvent jar and you let it sit for a couple days after you're done oil painting, and all of the pigment and everything or the sediment sinks down to the bottom and it stays there, and then the thinner is actually moved to the top of the container and you can dump that right back out and reuse it, and it's clean thinner. There are a couple different mediums to use as well in oil paint, and the Galkyd is going to be the probably number one that most people use, and Galkyd is great and it dries fairly quickly, which is awesome, but it's a medium that allows your paint to still stay pretty viscous, but still thin it down a little bit. So it's like mixing it with honey essentially, that's like a little bit watered down, and it's a great medium. It carries very, very well. It's beautiful on canvas, and you can actually glaze with it, which I really, really enjoy doing. Okay, so this is one that I learned from Milan Art Institute as well during one of our oil painting classes. It's from Eco House again. It's called Cozica Drier Blend, and when you pour it out, it is purple, and I think there's like some that has dripped down the side here, but it is purple, and then you mix it with your paint and it is completely clear. It does not change the pigment of your paint at all, and like the painting usually, as long as it's thin, if you're doing really thick heavy paint, which usually in oils people don't do, but if your paint is not very thick, it dries in like a few hours. I usually give it overnight just to be safe, and then you can go back to it and you're back to your painting and you can move on with it. So I really like this because it allows a much quicker drying time than normal. Okay, so next we are going to talk about brushes, and honestly, brushes are a personal preference. So I have a few that I recommend that are really, really basic brushes. Like I would recommend getting a couple size Filbert brushes, getting a fan brush, I would get a round brush if you can, maybe a liner brush, and then for backgrounds, get something like big like this. But really, brushes are all personal preference and it depends on what you're painting. So I'm going to leave that one in your hands. If you have any questions on the right brushes to buy, go ahead and comment down below and I'm more than happy to help you find them. But when you go to an art store, you can see which ones are meant for oil and acrylic and which ones are meant for watercolor, and so on. This is my favorite part about oil paints and what really drove me to utilize them more in my paintings. the color theory behind oil paints. And I know that that sounds daunting and it sounds like it's too much, and like, how can you memorize, you know, when to use these different colors, right? We know that there are warm oils and that there are cool oils. We know that those pigments, there's warm or cool, right? They are on a spectrum a little bit, right? So some of them will be, you know, warm, but over here, and some will be really warm over here. Same with cool, right? So the way that those pigments work with our eyeballs is that the warm pigments come forward and the cool pigments go backward. And so you want to make sure, if you want to add dimension in your painting, that, let's say you're painting my face right now. The very, very tip of my nose, you're gonna wanna paint warm. The sides of my nose here, you're gonna wanna paint cool. Even in your eyeball, so even like at the back of my eyeball, because an eyeball is round, at the back corner of my eyeball here and like the inside corner, you're gonna wanna use cool paints. Where at the front of my eyeball, you're gonna wanna use warm paints, and so on. So if you are wanting to create dimension like that, it is important and imperative that you understand that theory. If you guys don't know about color theory, it's an important thing to focus on when you are diving into oil paints, because you have to understand at least the basics in order to use oil paints correctly, and have incredible paintings. It's a whole thing that I could discuss much further. The class that I learned it most in actually wasn't in the mastery program. I learned a lot of it in the mastery program, a lot more of it, but there is a color theory class that the Milan Art Institute does that I will link below if you are interested in learning more about it. And that's really where I got the bulk of that information that allowed me to get started. So that's pretty much it. If you want to get started with oil paints, like I said, it's not a ton to know, but there's a few pieces of information that are very important to learn if you want to be safe, stay cost effective, and make beautiful practical art pieces. So thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate you, and I will see you on the next one. Make sure to like and subscribe to my channel for more videos along these lines.